Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys checking today's video out. Today got a really good video for you guys. I'm going to give you guys something you can do on your next fishing trip to immediately increase your short-term or your long-term success. And I know that every time I do a video that doesn't have anything to do with lures, it doesn't get near the views, but this is going to be one that's really going to help you out in the long term if you'd like to stick through the video and listen to the entirety of it. Couple of different things before we get started here, guys. You might notice that nothing back there in the back of the tackle room. I've had quite a few comments about people saying, what happened to the tackle room back there? Well, we're moving. We lived here. We're sort of like in the middle of Springfield, Missouri, and you guys that have watched the videos, you hear me talk about the crotch rockets and the Chargers and the Mustangs and how freaking noisy it is around here. So anywhere we're moving a few miles just outside of town. We're not moving that far away from here, but we're getting out away from town a little bit, sort of in a quieter area. So probably in the future videos, you're not going to hear all the motorcycle noise and the loud car noise quite as much. So got to get out there and get the new tackle room set up and everything. And still going to be a couple weeks for a move out there, but that's what's going on here. So also, guys, one thing real quick before we get started in the video here, I wanted to give you guys the update. SolarBat is running a sale on my RB2 series, Signature Series sunglasses through March, or excuse me, through May 31st. 25% off if you buy a pair of my RB2 sunglasses. And then if you buy a pair, SolarBat will send you a promo code where you can get 50% off a purchase of anything on the SolarBat website. So I'll put the SolarBat RB2 link in the description if you guys would like to take advantage of that. Much appreciated. Okay, guys, the thing about this bass fishing, we've talked about before, it's the most complicated sport out there in terms of variables that determine your success, uncontrolled and controlled variables. So as anglers, we have to take advantage of everything you can to control your outcome a little bit. So one of the things that you can do to immediately increase your short-term and your long-term success is you've got to master a variety of techniques. And how you do that is you've got to make a commitment to one technique, to learn that technique, to where you feel like you've mastered that technique. So let's take, for example, this is what I'm talking about, one thing that you can do that's going to immediately help your success, short and long term. Let's say that we'll take one technique out there. Let's say that you want to learn how to flip a jig. Maybe you've done a little bit and you're not that good at it, but you want to learn and you want to get good at flipping jigs. This is how you get good at a technique, and this is how you develop confidence in a technique. When you want to do something like that, and we'll just stick with the jig conversation here, go out there to have 2 flipping sticks in your boat. Don't have anything else in it. Have one flipping stick with 17-pound test fluorocarbon, one with 25-pound test fluorocarbon. Get you a box of jigs, and then a box of trailers out there. A variety of different colors, variety of different weights, variety of different jig profiles, colors like that. But that's all you got in the boat. You've got nothing but jigs, jig trailers, 2 flipping sticks out there. So from that standpoint, you are forced to learn that technique, and you're forced to look for the water for it. So here's the thing about it when you're learning a technique and you're wanting to get better immediately, is there's a combination excuse me, of the technique itself and the lure itself, and there's a combination of the area to fish that in. So if you go out there on your favorite lake, let's say for example, we go to Grand Lake together and we're going to flip jigs out there. The first thing that we have to do is determine where we need to go to flip the cover at. Now, on Grand Lake, you could flip jigs on docks. You could flip them on brush piles. You could flip them on lay down logs, whatever shallow covers in the water. So when you're focusing on a technique like flipping or cranking or top water, the first thing that you have to do is identify the primary cover that's going to give you the highest percentage areas of success with that technique. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be jigs, it could be crankbaits, it could be top waters, it could be swim baits, anything like that. But normally what happens is each technique that you have, there's a small amount of the overall water in the lake that has that predominant cover. So for example, if we go to Grand Lake and we want to flip jigs, right off the bat, you've got a couple of different options. You can run up the the upper ends of the creek arms, the upper ends of the river arms, where there's going to be more lay down trees, logs, stumps like that, simply because when the lake was flooded. So you're going to have more options as far as shallow targets. Or you can get on an area like down at Grand that's got a lot of boat docks and just concentrate on flipping underneath the boat docks, that type of deal. So you identify that. And it could be the same with if you're throwing a deep diving crankbait. I mean, you're either going to have to stay on, deeper points or ledges, drop offs, that type of stuff. And you don't vary off of that. You stay on that type of area. The next thing you have to do, and we'll go back to our jig conversation, is when you're trying to master a technique out there, one of the first things that you have to do once you identify the cover that you want to try that technique in is you have to narrow down the window of the specific profile and color of the lure that you're using. Because let's say for jigs, for example, you've got a wide range of possibilities. You've got 1/8 ounce jigs, you got 1/4 ounce jigs, you got 3/8, you got 5/8, you got 1/2 ounce, you got 3/4, you got 1 ounce. You got full size jigs like my Block It Old School jig, or you have a finesse jig. So you have a wide range of profiles. You have your skirt density. You may have a 2 or 3 layer skirt. You may have, the skirt may be trimmed back, the skirt may be long. There's a lot of variables within a jig itself in this particular mastering this particular technique. On top of that, you got your color considerations and you got your trailer considerations as far as the profile, length, and look of the bait that you want to have. So let's say, for example, we're going up there and we decided we got our jigs in the boat, we got our flipping sticks, and we want to concentrate on flipping lay down logs and lay down trees in the upper end of the creeks. That's sort of our game plan for the day, because maybe we found an area that's got 50 or 60 good trees or lay downs, and we're going to give this a try. So the first thing that you have to do, let's say, for example, you take all the variables in consideration. You look at the water visibility, you look at the water depth, you look at the water temperature, and then you make a determination on, okay, I see, for example, that we've got 65-degree water. We got water visibility that's 1.5 feet, and the ends of these laydowns and logs are in 3 foot of water. So given that tells you how you need to set up your bait as far as your color and your jig weight. So under a situation like that, with that type of visibility, I may try like a 3/8 ounce black and blue jig with a blue sapphire, chunk on it, and that's what I'm going to try with that. Now, if you go out there and you start flipping 10 or 15 laydowns without a bite on it, then you have to make that determination of, okay, do you need to try a different type of cover, or do you need to try a different type of jig presentation? And this is one of the things, this is how you learn how to master a technique, is that you narrow down those specific variables. So the next thing I would do with that, if I went through an area where I thought there was, definitely some fish to be caught in there, I may make a minor color change. For example, instead of a black and blue jig, I may go with some type of a green pumpkin, and I'll put a green pumpkin trailer on there, but I'll put a lot of dye on it so that this bait is a little bit more less obtrusive. It doesn't silhouette quite so much. Yet the chartreuse, I've got a significant amount of chartreuse dye, and when it's in the water, I can see that. So instead of this dark profile black and blue jig, I went to the other end of the spectrum, and I went to this green pumpkin, and still in the water clarity of, say, 15 inches, it still looks pretty good. And I may try that a little bit. And if it looks good, I'll keep fishing it. And if I'm not getting some bites, instead of a 3/8 ounce, I may go up to like a 5/8 ounce or something like that. Or say, for example, if the water is really starts to get shallow on the end of those trees, and I feel like that bait's fishing or falling a little too fast, I may go to a 1/4 ounce. And that is how you hit upon something that works, is you have to constantly experiment with the technique without giving up in the technique, without giving up on it. That is the key right there. So let's say, for example, you found this creek. You're on the upper end of a lake, and you're in a big creek, and you've got a lot of cover in there. It's like the water visibility is nice. Say it's 1 foot to 1.5 feet, perfect for pitching and flipping. you're noticing some shad flickering on the bank. You've got a lot of good cover, wildlife up on the bank, a lot of activity in the area. Maybe you see some fish jumping occasionally out there. There's fish in there. There's no doubt there's fish in there. And that's what you have to tell yourself. It's like, okay, I may not have the ideal technique. Maybe these fish want a spinner bait, or maybe they want, a buzz bait or something like that. But I'm going to resist that. I'm going to continue pitching and flipping this jig because I want to get better at it. And that's how you get better at a technique, guys, is by committing to that technique, even if it's not working that good. Because what happens is if you spend time committing to one particular technique, even when it's not producing very well, when you hit upon those situations where it is producing well, that is when you can take advantage of it and catch them better than anyone else around you, because you know what you need to do. You know the adjustments you need to make. And that's, I'll use an example in my own situation here to give you an example about how I became a jig master, because I love fishing jigs. I've talked a lot about my mentor, Terry Thomas. He taught me how to fish jigs. So I learned from Terry some of the basic fundamentals of jig fishing in terms of like cover and jig color, weight, trailers, and that type of stuff. And then once I got confidence in that technique and I saw firsthand how productive it was, then I could put my own spin on it. And over the rest of my life, even up to this point, I continue to do so. When I jig fish, I have got so many different things in my mind, because I have fished jigs for so many years, and I've caught so many bass on jigs in different situations where I can look at an area and I can look at the water clarity, I can look at the tint of the water, I can look at the light conditions, the light intensity, I can look at the cover, I can look at the type of the cover, I can look at the shoreline bank. I can absorb all of this external environmental information, and that gives me a starting point as far as the jig size, jig weight, everything like that I need to use. And I have fished long enough to know that if they don't work in a certain amount of time, then I need to make an adjustment. And we're talking about those adjustments that I just talked to. Now, this is the same in any technique. It doesn't make any difference. It can be with a shaky head, it can be with a Texas rig worm, a crankbait, a spinnerbait, a chatterbait, whatever. It's the same for every lure category out there. So the main thing, guys, is the first thing you can do, if you want to get good excuse me, bass fishing, and you want to have success that's sustainable and consistent success, and being able, if you're a tournament fisherman, being able to capitalize on a technique and win with it, you've got to master that technique. And that only comes with not having 20 rods on the boat with a boat full of tackle that makes it very, very easy and tempting to put something down if it's not working. And, a big swim bait or glide bait's a prime example, guys. You'll never get good with a big swim bait or glide bait unless that's all you take with you in the boat. That's just how you get good. That's how everybody that's good at a technique, that's how they do it. So give it a try. Like I said, if you got some free time and you've got spare days here and there, you want to learn how to do something, man, just take it out there, take nothing but that out, and just sort of follow that process I told you about. I think it'll be productive for you. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll talk later.